Dear students, welcome to INSIGHT Academy Super Platinum GS Foundation course once again. Today is the second class of NCERT based History Foundation part of your course. In this class, I'll connect you to the previous one, what did we study in the previous class, and then we'll continue with chapters of today's class one by one. So let us see the introduction. In the previous class, that is class number 1, you studied about the importance of ancient Indian history. Then we covered the topics like Stone Age or the life of early man. And there was another topic, Chalcolithic cultures. So by this time you know what do we mean by the term Stone Age. What do you mean by Chalcolithic? What is culture? And I hope you can recall how culture and civilization are different. In today's class, we will cover chapter number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 of your Ancient India NCERT, that is NCERT of class 11. Old NCERT we are following here. These chapters are from old NCERT. They will cover the concept from new NCERTs also. So these chapters you have to keep in mind. After the class, you should go through these chapters and then you'll have questions on these chapters for your practice. So first is Harappan culture or Harappan civilization. Bronze Age civilizations, what is Bronze Age? That also explained to you. Advent of Aryans. Advent means arrival of Aryans or emergence of Aryans, age of Rigved. Rigved was the first Ved. Later Vedic phase. So what do you mean by Rigvedic phase? What do you mean by later Vedic phase? Transition to state and social order. We'll see that part. Jainism, Buddhism, basics of Jainism, Buddhism we'll study. Territorial states and the first Magadhan Empire. Iranian and Macedonian invasion, that is chapter number 12. So let us start with Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. So first thing you should know, what do you mean by the term Harappan civilization and Indus Valley civilization? The term civilization refers to an evolved form of life. In simplest language, you can understand it, civilization indicates urban life. A culture typically indicates village life. When we say culture, we mean by the term culture in the terms of norms, values, customs, tradition, or simply the way people live. Culture indicates inner part, inner beliefs. And culture manifests itself in the form of, let's say, dress pattern, food habits, in terms of painting, music, literature. So that's a manifestation of cultural traits of a group. Civilization will also have culture in it, but civilization is highly evolved. So civilization will also have religious beliefs, values, customs, traditions, norms, of course dress pattern, of course music, dance, painting, other art forms. But here these art forms or the way of life is highly evolved. So Harappan civilization was an urban civilization, or civilization has to be urban. Culture, when we say just culture, it is largely rural, not always, because civilization will also have cultural dimensions in it. Indus Valley civilization, Harappan civilization, these two names are used for this great phase of human existence in Indian subcontinent. This civilization was discovered in 1922. Though many evidences were found before 1922 also, but in 1922, when excavations were being carried out at Harappa, some pots, some seals, some other remains of this great civilization were discovered. So this civilization was discovered in 1922. The early sites of this civilization, such as Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, were located in the valley of river Indus. So that time the historians, the archaeologists thought that this civilization was only in the valley of river Indus. So it was named as Indus Valley Civilization. Later on, many sites or settlements, or you can say towns and cities, later on many sites of this civilization were discovered far beyond the geographical region of Indus river system or Indus Valley. Think of Gujarat, think of Haryana, think of even western parts of UP. So this civilization was not limited to the valley of river Indus. So Indus Valley Civilization, the name that was given to it initially was no longer looking valid, or we say it was a misnomer, or it had become a misnomer. Misnomer means something that does not represent the truth. So it was a misnomer, so new name was adopted, and that name was Harappan Civilization. Why Harappan Civilization? Because Harappa was the first site where the remains, where the evidence of this civilization were discovered. So Indus Valley Civilization or Harappan Civilization, meaning is the same. Harappan Civilization is a better term, is a better way of saying this civilizational phase of human existence. So that's the first point here that you have to see. Second point. What do you mean by Harappan culture? Because if you see the name of chapter is Harappan culture. Harappan culture means religious beliefs, social life, painting, music, dance, architecture, or the norms, values, customs and traditions, etc. of Harappan people. So Harappan civilization was having culture as a part of it. So when you say Harappan civilization, we mean by urban phase. So here I say Harappan culture. So culture, and then second time is written Bronze Age civilization. So this is 11th class NCERT. At this level, we do not focus on very, very fine differentiation or the use of best of terminology. So this name itself is confusing. Was it a culture? Was it a civilization? So it was a civilization, and civilization will have culture in it, or civilization was having cultural elements as a part of it. So Harappan culture, Harappan civilization, you have to see them at two different levels. Once you look at inner parts, we say Harappan culture, something we say intangible, something that you cannot touch, feel, you cannot see directly. For example, norms, values, social system, you cannot see directly till the time you do not look at the functioning of those relationships. So moving to the next part here. This civilization was a Bronze Age civilization. Like previous phase of life was Stone Age. Stone Age was followed by Copper Age, and in some parts of Indian subcontinent as well as in other parts of the world, people got the technology to make bronze. Bronze was made by mixing tin with copper. So Bronze Age means this was the age during which bronze alloy, bronze is not a metal. So in civil services preparation, you have to use the terms very, very precisely. So don't write bronze is a metal. Bronze is an alloy. It's a mix of tin and copper. So this phase of life was characterized by the large scale use of bronze alloy. So this is known as Bronze Age. So Bronze Age, time period, same Chalcolithic, 2800 BC to 700 BC. This was the Bronze Age, and within this Bronze Age, there was a phase of Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. Harappan civilization was from 2600 BC to 1750 BC. So this is the most acceptable date of Harappan civilization. We'll see in detail when we come to the advanced level of classes. This civilization is also known as proto-historic civilization. And here the concept is proto-history that you need to understand. What is proto-history? Proto-history has a couple of more similar terms like prehistory, proto-history, and then finally history. Prehistory means that phase of human life when people were not aware of a script. The human beings did not know how to write. So there is no written record of prehistoric age. Example, Stone Age. Protohistoric phase means that phase of human existence during which people knew how to write. They had a script, but we have not yet deciphered that script. We have not read that script yet. So that is Harappan script. Harappan people were using pictographic script as we discussed in the previous class. But these Harappan people used a very difficult kind, a very different kind of a script. Today's scientists, today's historians, archaeologists, they have not read it successfully so far, or this script has not been successfully deciphered. Then comes the historic phase. Historic phase means that phase of human life about which we have archaeological as well as written evidence. Here only archaeological evidence. Here we have archaeological and written evidence, but written evidence is not being read successfully, so we do not know what is the source, what is the information. Here we have written as well as archaeological, so 600 BC onwards. Till today, this is historic phase. Prehistory up to 2800 BC. So up to 2800 BC, from beginning of human life commenced something around 2 million years ago. So for those 20 lakh years, the phase was Stone Age, and that was prehistory. And 2800 BC to say 600 BC, this was proto-historic phase. So even the Vedic age will come in proto-history, not in history, because Vedic Aryans did not know how to write. They did not have a script. We have written records of Vedic age, but these written records were written much later. Vedic Aryans composed their hymns or shlokas orally. So this is what you have to understand about Indus Valley civilization, what it was, where did it emerge, we will see in the next few minutes. So Harappa, this particular site here, location here. Mohenjo-daro, this particular location, these were the earliest of the sites to be discovered, to be excavated. This is River Indus, if you can read it. So this is Indus River, and then it has 5 tributaries. So Harappa, Mohenjo-daro and other early sites which were discovered during excavations were found in the valley of River Indus or Indus River system, we see. Both are in Pakistan today. Large number of sites were found in Gujarat also. This is a very prominent site, Lothal. This was a port city. Rangpur Desalpur also is very prominent site. So this was the area of Harappan civilization that you can see from the map. Harappans were having sea trade, so they were using boats. So this is a kind of pictographic representation of city of Lothal, where they were using a dockyard or the port. Then they were having houses made of burnt bricks, and cities were very well planned. So cities were laid out in a very planned manner, or there was a system of town planning in Harappan civilization. This is one of the most prominent structures discovered in the city of Mohenjo-daro. You can see here Mohenjo-daro, Great Bath. So this was a kind of swimming pool, you can see, or water storage tank. It is believed that it was used for ceremonial bathing. So ceremonial bathing used to take place here, and it was having stairs in two directions. You can see here one direction, another direction is here, this side. So it's having stairs in two directions. All you can see in burnt bricks, a beautiful massive structure, and this was the city of Mohenjo-daro. When Harappan civilization was there was another contemporary civilization called Mesopotamian civilization. Meso means middle. Potamian means two rivers. So Mesopotamian civilization was located between two rivers, or in the valley of two rivers. These rivers were river Tigris and river Euphrates. Tigris and Euphrates rivers were in Iraq or are in Iraq. So this civilization was in today's Iraq and Syria regions. The southern area of this civilization, southern part of this civilization, was known as Sumerian civilization. So Sumerian civilization was basically part of Mesopotamian civilization. It was the southern region, southern part of Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamian civilization or Sumerian civilization, this civilization was contemporary to Harappan civilization. Harappans used to have trade relations with Mesopotamians. They used to go to this civilization through land routes as well as through sea routes. The Mesopotamians used to refer Harappan region or Harappan civilization as Meluha. Mesopotamian script or the writing of Mesopotamian civilization people has been deciphered successfully. So in those scripts of Mesopotamian people, we find the repeated use of term Meluha, and from Meluha, or Meluha was the place from where they used to import cotton. So from Meluha they used to import cotton, and cotton was termed by them as Sindhon. So Sindhon was a name of cotton. They used to import Sindhon from Meluha. It means the Sindhon was the Sindhu or Indus region, and Meluha was the name given by Mesopotamian to Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. When Harappans used to go to Mesopotamia, they used to have two intermediate trading stations, also on the map, Makan and Dilmun. So these two terms are also mentioned in Mesopotamian records. Makan here refers to Makran coast. Makran coast is today's Iranian, Pakistani coast. This is Makran coast. So when Harappans were going from, let's say, they're starting from Lothal here, they will take some rest here at Makan, and then they will move further. This is Bahrain. This was the name, or the name of this place was Dilmun, and then from here they were going further to Mesopotamian civilization or Sumerian civilization. So Dilmun, Bahrain, or identified with Bahrain, Makan, Makran coast were the two intermediate trading stations used by the people of Harappan civilization. The trade relations between these two civilizations were favorable to Harappans. Meaning of that is export were more than imports. So Harappans used to export more, they used to import less. So this trade relationship between Harappan civilization and Mesopotamian civilization was beneficial to people of Harappan civilization. They used to get a lot of wealth through this trade relationship. There was another civilization in that age that was in Egypt, and this civilization was also contemporary to Harappan civilization. So Egypt, if you can see here, North Africa here, this is Egypt. Harappans used to go to Egypt also through this route, as well as through this route here through, think of this is Red Sea, Arabian Sea. So Harappans used to follow land routes also. They used to start from here. Suppose if you see that location of Harappa, location of Mohenjo-daro here. So they used to go through Afghanistan also. That was a land route. And they used to use sea routes also. They were having knowledge of boat. They used to make boats for sea and river trade. So Egyptian civilization was also contemporary to Harappan civilization, and Harappans were having trade relations with Egyptian civilization also. What were the economic activities of Harappan people? Harappan people were practicing agriculture. Harappan people were involved in manufacturing activities. So they were having industries. And Harappan people were also involved in trade and commerce. So they were having trade and commercial relationship. So what kind of agriculture was there in Harappan civilization? Harappan people used to have agriculture in flood plains. Flood plains means in the vicinity of the river or the river coast, they used to have agriculture. They used to sow their seeds in the month of November after the end of rainy season, and used to harvest their crops in the month of April before the onset of the next rainy season. So November to April was their agricultural time, was their crop time. They used to have barley, wheat, cotton, pea, gram, sesame, mustard, different kind of crops were grown by them. And this agriculture of Harappan civilization was surplus. Surplus means they were producing more than what they could consume. It means people were rich. In manufacturing activities, Harappans were practicing pot making, so they were having pottery. They were having knowledge of copper, so copper items were there. They were making bronze items. They did not know iron. So if sometimes you come across a question, were Harappan people aware of iron? No, they did not know iron. Iron knowledge was not there in India or in any other part of the world that time. Knowledge of iron metallurgy was attained only in around 1000 BC. That is the beginning of the later Vedic age. Trade commerce also they used to have, and in trade and commerce they used to use seals. Seals were like today's stamps. What was the use of seal? Whenever Harappans used to send their goods from one place to other, they used to wrap those goods in sheets, cloth sheets. And that package was tied with rope, then note was put. On the note they used to put wet soil, and on that wet soil they used to put a stamp or the seal. If this package was opened by somebody on the way, then seal won't be intact. So this was the purpose of seal. authentication of transaction. So seals were like today's stamps. Have a look here, these are some of the Harappan seals. Every rich merchant, every big merchant used to have his seal, and whenever he was having transaction with somebody, he was putting that seal for his authentication. Seals were not coins. At times in books also it is quite confusing. There is no explanation for the seal properly. So students end up understanding seals as coins. So seals were not coins. Seals were like today's stamp. Harappan age was followed by Vedic age, Vedic Aryans. We call them Vedic Aryans because information about them is provided by Vedas. Aryans, the term Aryan is used for those people who used to speak Sanskrit language. The term Aryan is not a racial term. Aryan does not indicate any particular race. Aryan term indicates a person using Sanskrit language. Another meaning of Aryan is a person of high birth or the person of noble birth. So these Vedic Aryans emerged on the scene somewhere around 1500 BC, and Vedic age continued till 600 BC. This Vedic age is divided into two parts. 1500 BC to 1000 BC and 1000 BC to 600 BC. 1500 BC to 1000 BC is known as early Vedic age or Rig Vedic age. 1000 BC to 600 BC is known as later Vedic age. So if you see the name of the chapter is later Vedic age, one of the chapters, you should understand we are talking about later Vedic age means 1000 BC to 600 BC period. One of the reasons of differentiation or the point of division was the knowledge of iron metallurgy. Iron metallurgy knowledge was attained in around 1000 BC, and that brought many changes. So from where did the Aryans come? This is a matter of controversy, but it is believed that they came from somewhere in Central Asia. Nobody knows for sure, but it is widely believed they come from Central Asia, that from Central Asia, one branch moved into Iran, other branch moved towards India, and from Iraq, Iran, some inscriptions have been found. Kassite inscription, Mitanni inscription. Kassite inscription is of something around 1600 BC. Mitanni inscription is of around 1400 BC. Of the same period, we are talking about Vedic age, and some of the Aryan tribes, some of the Aryan groups are mentioned in these inscriptions. So it appears that some groups of Aryans from Central Asia moved into the Iran-Iraq region, and some other groups moved into India. They came in groups slowly. They did not come suddenly. That's in 1500 BC. They came over centuries in different groups, one after other. So this is Vedic age. Information about Aryans is coming from Vedas. Vedas are four: Rig Veda or Rig Veda, Yajurveda or Yajurveda, Samaveda or Samaveda, Atharvaveda or Atharvaveda. Rigveda was composed, again try to understand the term composed, not written. Rigveda was composed during early Vedic age or in 1500 BC to 1000 BC. So Rig Veda provides information about early Vedic age. Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda were composed during later Vedic age. That is 1000 BC to 600 BC. It means these Vedas provide information about the later period. That's how you have to understand division: early Vedic, later Vedic. Rig Veda has some chapters. How many chapters? There are 10 chapters, and these chapters are known as mandala. So mandala, when you read in NCERT or in any other book, you should understand this is a chapter. Out of these, chapter number 2 to chapter number 7, how many chapters? Total 6 chapters are oldest, and these are known as family mandalas. Why family mandalas? Because these mandalas were composed by specific families of priests. So some families of priests were composing them over centuries. These were composed orally. For example, Om Bhurбhuva Swatat Saviturvarenayam Bhurgo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. So this is one of the hymns. And in which mandala? In which chapter it is? So such kind of hymns are there in different chapters. This hymn, Om Bhurбhuva Swa, was composed by Vishwamitra, and this was dedicated to God, sun, or other name of the god will come across later, Savitra. So these chapters are the oldest. They are known as family mandalas. Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharveda. Yajurveda and Samveda deal with social life, economic life, religious life. Atharveda is also dealing with social life, economic life, but Atharveda is unique because it contains names of lot of indigenous groups, or the groups that were living in India, or we say indigenous tribes. Ayurveda is a part of Atharveda or is associated with Atharva Veda. Similarly, here also there is one similar Veda that is known as Upaveda. Dhanurveda. So Dhanurveda was Upaveda of Rig Veda. Shilpa Veda, Upaveda of Yajurveda. Samaveda was having Gandharva Veda. Gandharva Veda deals with music. So Upaveda means you can say appendix or an additional chapter. Ayurveda was having Upaveda was Upaveda of Atharveda dealing with medical science. To facilitate understanding of these Vedas, the Vedic Aryans composed Vedangas. So this term also will come across maybe in a different chapter. Vedanga means Vedoke Ang, the limbs of Vedas. So these limbs of Vedas were composed to facilitate the understanding of Vedic knowledge or Vedic literature. So this much you should understand here. What is Veda? How many Veda? What do we mean by Veda? Veda means, Vid is originating from that word. Vid means knowledge. What was the political life in Vedic age? The Vedic Aryans were tribals, so they were living in tribal groups under a tribal chief. Family or Kula was the smallest unit. A number of families together formed village or grama. A number of grama or village formed together vis, and the highest unit was jana. During early Vedic age, this was a scenario. Jana was the highest unit. Tribal chief was the head of Jana, that you can understand here. He was Janesya, the head of Jana. During later Vedic age, the Janas became bigger and they came to be known as Janapadas. And Janapadas continued to expand, and in 600 BC or in 6th century BC, they became Mahajanapadas. Maha means bigger, Janapada, kingdom, bigger kingdoms. So things evolved gradually. The powers of tribal chief or the king increased gradually from early Vedic to later Vedic age. During early Vedic age, the wars and battles were fought for cattle lifting. Cattle lifting means cattle theft. So cattle lifting was the most common cause of war during early Vedic age, but during later Vedic age, territorial expansion was the main reason for war. And since wars and battles were for territorial expansion, that is why Janas became bigger and they expanded into Janapadas. So this is how you need to understand the change. One of the battles here was the Battle of 10 Kings. This was a battle during early Vedic age. So it is mentioned in Rig Veda. At times the term is used Rig Vedic Samhita. So Rig Veda, Rig Vedic Samhita, you can understand these are one and the same. On one side was King Sudas of Bharata tribe or Bharat tribe. On other side was an alliance of 10 kings. So these 10 kings were together. This alliance of 10 kings was headed by Vishwamitra. The same Rishi, same sage who composed Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhurvaswa. The story goes that Vishwamitra was a chief priest of King Sudas. Then after some time, another priest named Vashist came to the court of Sudas and he claimed that I have better knowledge than Vishwamitra. So a discussion or a kind of debate was held. In that debate, Vishwamitra was defeated by Vasist. So Sudas appointed Vasist as his chief priest. Vishwamitra felt annoyed. He felt humiliated. So he decided to destroy King Sudas. So he created an alliance of 10 kings and challenged Sudas. This battle was fought on the banks of river Parushani. Parushani was the name of river Ravi. In this battle, King Sudas emerged victorious, and once he emerged victorious, so Bharata tribe became very powerful, or their territories increased enormously. Very important battle, Battle of 10 Kings in Vedic times. Social life in Vedic age, family was the primary unit of society, Kul. Then institutions like marriage, institutions like Varna system, all were existing, all emerged in this age. Ashrama system was also one important concept here. In ashrama system, the life of a person was divided into 4 phases of 25 years each. 25 years Brahmacharya ashram 0 to 25, Grihastha ashram 25 to 50, Vanaprastha ashram 50 to 75, and then Sannyas ashram 75 to 100. Gotra system also emerged in this age, and Gotra identity was used for marriage relationship, for matrimonial relationship. Marriage between two people of the same gotra or male, female from the same gotra was prohibited. And this was having some genetic considerations, because if the marriage takes place between two people of different lineages, then they are likely to have better genes, they are likely to have no hereditary or genetic disorder. If you look at economic life in Vedic times, during early Vedic age, hunting, food gathering, were the main activities. During later Vedic age, the Aryans started practicing agriculture. A small amount of manufacturing activities such as making of clothes, spinning, weaving, etc. were also there. Some of these activities such as spinning and weaving were practiced by women, or spinning and weaving were the economic activities of women. There was no surplus. So it means agriculture was also not very well developed. There was no surplus here. People used to work hard to produce to fulfill their basic needs, and they used to produce only basic goods. So economy was quite underdeveloped. This was the early phase. In early Vedic age, people did not know iron. They knew copper, bronze, tin, gold, silver, everything. In later Vedic age, people became aware of iron also. So that is one important point of differentiation. What was religious life? People worshipped different gods and goddesses. Varuna was chief deity in early Vedic age. So he was chief god. Indra and Agni were other two important deities. In later Vedic age, Prajapati Brahma became the chief deity. Vishnu and Rudra later identified with Shiva, were other prominent deities. And then gradually Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, this trinity concept of three main gods emerged. So religious life was revolving around different gods and goddesses. People were performing different rituals and ceremonies. Yagna, or right pronunciation is Yag, Y-A-G-N, Yag, was the crux, was the core of Vedic religion. They used to perform Yag on different occasions to please the gods and goddesses. So rituals were practiced by them in different forms. Moving to the next phase, in 6th century BC, a number of new religions emerged, and number of these religions was 62 heterodox sects, so 62 new religions came into existence. Two among these were Buddhism and Jainism. Buddhism was founded by Siddhartha or Mahatma Buddha. So Mahatma Buddha was the founder, that's why the name is Buddhism. Buddhism, Jainism, these were two main prominent ones, and all of these emerged mostly in eastern India, particularly in Bihar region, eastern UP area. Because as Vedic culture was spreading in those areas, people did not like it, they resented, so they were looking for something different, and that need of people was fulfilled by Mahatma Buddha and by Mahavira. Jainism was founded by Mahavira and his original name was Vardhaman. So Vardhaman Mahavir. In Jainism, there is a concept of Tirthankaras. 4 builders or great teachers. There were 24 Tirthankaras. Mahavira was the last and 24th in this tradition, in this system. Jainism was the result of the evolution of a long process, and this process was started by Rishabhadev, also termed as Adinath. He was the first Tirthankara. Mahavira was 24th, the last Tirthankara. 23rd Tirthankara was also quite important, and 23rd Tirthankara was Parshinath. Parshinath and Mahavir contributed most to the emergence of Jainism. Most of the teachings of Jainism were created by them, were outlined by them. How did Jainism move into South? Jainism was carried into South by Bhadrabahu. And this is important because this was a result of some developments in North India. Bhadrabahu was living in around 300 BC period. At that time, Chandragupta Maurya was the ruler of India. He was the head of Magadhan Empire, or he was the ruler of whole of Indian subcontinent, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, etc. So a massive famine struck North India at that time. Famine means a situation of large-scale death due to non-availability of food. So bhukmari. So there was a massive famine in North India. Life in North India became very difficult for Orthodox Jaina monks. Jainas were supposed to live a very tough life. They were not supposed to wear clothes. So Bhadrabahu, along with his followers, he moved to south. King Chandragupta Maurya also left his throne in favor of his son Bindusara. So he asked Bindusara, his son, to sit on the throne, and he left throne. He moved to south along with Bhadrabahu, and they reached Karnataka, and they lived on Chandragiri Hill. Chandragiri Hill is located near Mysore. So Bhadrabahu carried Jainism to south. So starting from here, if you see the map, starting from here, Vaishali, Patliputra, and then going to South Karnataka. This was the movement of Jainism from north to south. Mahajanapadas. This was also a development in post-Vedic age or in 6th century BC. When you say 6th century BC, we are talking about 100 years, 600 BC to 500 BC period. That is how you have to understand. 6th century means 100 years. It's not one particular year. So in 6th century BC, 16 big states or 16 big kingdoms came into existence, and these big kingdoms were Mahajanapadas. These kingdoms were located all over North India. Magadha Mahajanapada was most powerful. Others you can see here on the map: Vats, Chedi, Avanti in western parts of India, Matsya, Jaipur of today, Sursena again, Rajasthan. Then you can see here Kashi, Videha, Kosal, Malla. One important point you need to remember here, that this Ashmaka, Asmaka, Ashmaka was the only Mahajanapada located in the south of Vindhyas. Its capital was Pratisthana. It was located in the valley of river Godavari. So this was unique, so this becomes very important for your exam. Pratisthana was the capital of Ashmaka. These Mahajanapadas, which emerged in 6th century BC, continued to evolve for the next 300 years. So Mahajanapada period was for around 300 years, 600 BC to 300 BC. Magda was the most powerful among these Mahajanapadas. And why Magda was most powerful? Because it was having extensive fertile land. Kings were very capable. So Magadhan Mahajanapada was the most powerful one. This Mahajanapada, that was Magda, became empire gradually. So initially Magda was a Mahajanapada. Under Nanda dynasty, Mahapadam Nanda, Dhanananda, it became an empire. So Nanda Empire was the first empire in Indian history. Nandas were followed by Mauryans. Mauryas or Mauryans, Chandragupta Maurya was the founder of this dynasty. Bimbisara was his son. Ashoka was son of Bimbisara. Ashoka was the greatest ruler in this line of kings. Before Nandas, there were a couple of more dynasties. Shishunag dynasty was before Nanda. And before Shishunag dynasty, there was another dynasty, that was Haryanka dynasty. Haryanka dynasty was founded by a very powerful king. The name you should remember, Bimbisara. Son of Chandragupta Maurya was Bindusar. This was Bimbisar. Bimbisar's son was Ajatashatru, and he was very powerful. Ajatashatru was very powerful. He transformed Magadhan Mahajanapada into a very big, very powerful kingdom. And then came Sishunagas, and then came Nandas, then came Mauryans. Mauryans were later followed by Shungas, and Shungas were later followed by Kanvas. So this series you should understand and you should remember. Kanva dynasty was the last in this series. Moving to the last part of today's class, Iranian and Macedonian invasions. This is the last chapter. The rulers of Iran attacked India. Macedonia, today's Eastern Europe. Iranians, rulers like Darius, Darius, and Xerxes, they attacked India. Darius was in 6th century BC. He attacked India, but he could not maintain control over India. So some parts of India, only Sindh and Punjab portions, were conquered by him. Xerxes expanded further. Punjab was under his rule, and a huge amount of revenue was received by these Iranians from India. This conquest benefited India economically because Indo-Iranian trade got a boost. Once these regions were part of one empire, so Indian traders could go freely to Iran. Trade got a boost, cultural transaction took place. So Indo-Iranian cultures are quite similar because cultural transactions are taking place since ages. Macedonians were like Alexander, Sikandar. Alexander attacked India in 326 BC. And that time king was Dhanananda. it was the age of Nanda dynasty. Alexander was very powerful, but Dhanananda was much more powerful. So when the soldiers of Alexander heard the stories of the power of Dhanananda, they got terrified and they refused to enter India. So he did not conquer India as such. He was just in the bordering areas of Punjab, where he had a fight with famous king Porush. So Porush fought strongly with him. He was captured and he was carried to Alexander, and then Alexander asked him, how should you be treated? Porus replied very courageously, very confidently, that you should treat me the way one king treats other. Alexander was impressed. Porus was released. So this is a very famous story, that even in serious crisis, even after losing the war, Porus did not feel terrified. He talked to Alexander very confidently. That's what is the character. So Macedonians, you can see here on the map, this part here. Today's Greece, Eastern Europe. Iranians were here. Ariana or Irania or Persia, and they attacked from there to India. This reason, Bactria, you should remember, Bactria was in north of Afghanistan, or the area between today's Afghanistan and Iran was Bactria. This Bactrian kingdom was established by Macedonians in Indian subcontinent. So this was today's class. All the chapters in NCERT you should read carefully. Note down the main points. Remember the concept that we have discussed here and try to mix both of these. If you find any difficulty, if you face any problem, feel free to contact me through teacher support and I'll be glad to help you. So keep revising, keep learning every day. All the best. God bless you.